discuss the matter of interior code compliance ordinances. As Mr. Barker indicated, this is not the first of these ordinances that's been gone around the city. We actually, this ordinance that you guys adopted is based on a model ordinance that our association worked with Sandy Springs and the city of Roswell to put in place. Sandy Springs was kind of the front runner of this. They had an aging population of apartments, and one of the things they wanted to do was make sure that the interior of the apartments was meeting code. And the way they had to do that was to go through a model ordinance such as the one you guys have before you. It has worked really well in Sandy Springs. I know staff has had an opportunity to speak to their staff that are, they've actually been through their 5th year already. So they've been through the first 100% and now the 20% therefore, so they've had to go back through it. They learned a lot of things that fortunately they passed on to all the other jurisdictions that have done this, and we've been able to benefit each time it gets adopted to make it a little bit better so that we're catching things that happen. Their compliance rate is about 97% on this after 5 years. So it's a very good working model. The county actually adopted an ordinance like this countywide that is in effect right now. All properties that are multifamily and unincorporated DeKalb will have to meet something similar. Yours actually has some features to it that are a little bit nicer than what DeKalb did, which is you're allowing us to do our own inspectors. We can use staff if they meet the certification requirements, which is fantastic for us and our residents, primarily because it saves us money. We don't have to then increase rent at any point. The thing for residents that's great is that they can use a maintenance person they've probably met before, so they're not having to get someone new wandering through their apartment, because remember, people are living in these spaces, specifically when you do the 100%. The other thing that's fantastic is that allowing us to use our own staff, when you do this 20%, we can do it at turnover. So you're not dealing with having to upset or in any way inconvenience a resident to go in and do the inspection. But I can tell you it's been working very effectively. I'm not going to say that everybody will be happy to do it. Let's be realistic, not everybody wants any extra regulation. But I would say that if this is something the city is looking to adopt, this is a great model for that. And I'd be happy to see what you have.
Are there any
only question.
requirements for the inspector that goes into the apartments?
Yeah, they actually have to meet an international certification through the ICC. There actually is some flexibility in that. They could hire an architect or an engineer or then meet one of these qualifications. But there's combination building inspector, but it's a well-known, recognized certification that a lot of building inspectors and building officials already meet. And actually, I think your staff already meet all of those as far as city staff too. So.
Any more questions? Go ahead.
Do you think that effectively addresses the detail as to who chooses the inspector? Are they going to choose their own?
Well, it really depends. There's not a lot of people teaching the education courses for this. It's something I know that the association's been working on because, you guys are the next ones discussing this. City of Smyrna just adopted it. Sandy Springs has it. Dunwoody has it. DeKalb County just adopted it. The one thing that was really restricting when the county adopted it was that they required that it be a third-party inspector and you could use your own staff. And unfortunately, as of right now, and I'm thinking countywide because I have 330 apartment units or communities, about 72,000 units across DeKalb County. And some of them are in the city of Clarkston, so they wouldn't apply unless you guys adopt this. But there's only 31 registered inspectors that they can choose from. So it's been a real struggle because I'm happy to hire someone that there's a limited number and it's making it very difficult. So it is allowing the flexibility to do that. And there's a lot of benefit to letting us use their own inspectors. But again, they have to meet the qualifications. And if you ever wanted, you certainly can speak to Sandy Springs. They're very open about talking about their process and then how successful it's been. I know Nancy Leathers was up there forever and has probably met with staff several times, but she's fantastic and can help in any respect. And I'm happy to help as you guys roll this out too. I've been on the ground for 4 of these, so I'm very aware of what's going on. So.
As difficult as it might be to get a third-party inspector, I feel like that would be the ideal to eliminate. Excuse me. To be a good neutral way of dealing with this.
Well, again, we really would support it primarily if it just doesn't work as effectively if you're using a third party. And if you have questions about whether or not they've had any impropriety in that, you certainly, again, Sandy Springs has been doing it for 5 years. and they've not had any issues of impropriety. They've found a couple of things that were definitely interesting they've looked at over the years, but they can speak to the fact that been given our opportunity to do their own stuff. And quite frankly, I wouldn't say that, we have a small amount of properties in the city of Clarkston. I wouldn't know that many of them have staff that are trained probably to do it anyway. But I wouldn't want you to also limit someone's opportunity to go get education and better themselves as a maintenance person to do those inspections for their company. I think that's bettering what you have day to day on a property. If you have maintenance staff that's trained to do these certifications, you can do these on a regular basis, whether or not you're doing a 20% or whether or not you're required to. I think you have a better trained eye. And I'm afraid if you say you can only use third party, you eliminate someone's desire to maybe go out and get that. So I think the education aspect is important. But again, if you're going to speak to neutrality, Sandy Springs has not had any issues, and neither has, I guess, Smyrna just adopted it with that, but they don't have theirs in place yet. So they're the two main ones.
I guess I'm curious. This would be based on a model ordinance that's already been established. It's already been in use by other jurisdictions. The procedure, the methodology for the inspection, is that established as an industry standard, or is that an administrative decision that's specific to the jurisdiction?
I think every jurisdiction has really put together their own checklist. Of course, we've encouraged us to use the same ones across jurisdictions because you have property owners in Clarkston that are also own properties in unincorporated cab, and it doesn't make sense if you have something that's a good working model to switch it and make it more difficult. What we've suggested and what hasn't been done was that, if you do it for the first 100% and you see that you're having huge issues and things, because if they're not able to pass inspection, they're given time to come into compliance, which is the whole goal. The whole goal is to make sure these people are in compliance and meeting code. So the ordinance allows them the opportunity to make corrections, make repairs, and then get it in by the time the business license is done. So they can go through an inspection and re-inspection to get themselves into compliance. However, you may, and based on the age of some apartment communities in Clarkston, you may have people who have significant issues that may have to be addressed that may take them longer than a year to come into compliance on. They may have to come to you, and there's a built-in provision in the ordinance that allows them to come and to talk to the building official here and to get some leeway as far as an extension. They can grant up to, I think the ordinance says, a year.
Yes.
So the idea again is to help some people, because you're going to have some people here who may have older properties that need more time to get that done. But so there's time. I have no idea where I was going when I started this. What was the question?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of an extension. I was just asking you about the procedure.
Okay, so the checklist. The checklist is based on the International Property Maintenance Code, which is the code standard that guides property maintenance for almost every jurisdiction as your technical code across the jurisdiction. It's really based on life safety issues. It is to check to make sure that you don't have rodent infestation. It is to check to make sure that this is not a cosmetic checklist. This checklist is built to make sure that you have hot water that works, that you have an air conditioning system that will turn on if you need it, heating systems. And there are things that we've run into that are very interesting, that we have residents that actually shut off their own gas and that we can't get that turned on to do things. So there's a little amount of subjectivity that's given when the inspector goes out to do it. So there's a little leeway there. But every item on the checklist that you guys have looked at, and it's very similar to what DeKalb has adopted and SWRM's adopted and everyone has, is it's all based on that maintenance code.
Yeah, to my mind, that's a very important distinction for our community to be aware of, that this specifically focused a particular lens on health and safety.
Correct. And what my suggestion again, and what we've talked about in other jurisdictions, is if you do this for a year and you see a consistent issue in some area that you feel that you need to address, it's not addressed in the interior stuff, you can certainly go back, and say we need to make a correction and adjust, the checklist. All we'd ever ask is that when you start having those discussions, that you bring us to the table too, to allow us to, provide feedback on what those changes are. But I can say that the checklist you have is something that has been reviewed by our members, and the association is fine with.
Thank you. Any more questions for the council?
All right, the public.
Hey, I would just love to see, my name is Mary Hoyt, I live in Market Street, and would love to see third-party inspectors. I feel like the apartment owners, I don't know so much about the managers, but definitely the owners have lost our trust, and that's why we're implementing these strategies, and don't have the trust for them to use their internal staff. And I feel like what I'm hearing is that Clarkston is actually going to be more lenient than the county, and we don't want to see that. We want to at least hold our apartment complexes to the bar that the county is holding. But I know you may know way more about this than I do. I just think with our apartment complexes, they haven't gained our trust, or we can trust them.
Can I add to that? Yeah, just want everybody to know that whether it's a third party or whether or not it is an employee, all inspectors are certified, they have a registration number, and if they pass a dwelling that should not have been passed, like most people who hold certifications, they would be in danger of losing that certification, A. And then B, we have city staff that hold the same certifications, and so our motto is trust but verify.
There's also liability that's built into that as well. I mean, there is a clause that discusses the liability of someone misinforming or mistakenly do that. So there is a clause that addresses how to handle that.
J.D. McCurry, Castle Drive, and I'd like to make 2 points. As someone who deals a lot with apartment management and apartment maintenance, I would heavily advocate for an independent third-party inspector. We have had tremendous amount of issues with apartment management and maintenance over the years, and it's something we would love to get resolved. However, if you have the same maintenance person doing the inspection who also has to go back and do that work the next day, I mean, I can assure you that it's going to be a very, very difficult uphill climb to get these apartments in order, which I would love to see. And the second point I would like to make is I would love for this information to be made public on the city's website or somewhere where you can literally go to the apartment complex, to the unit number, and see their inspection report like you would at a restaurant. And I can assure you that the refugee resettlement community would use that tool every day. We would never put somebody in an apartment that we have not checked that database and that has been fully cleared. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Thank you.
I would definitely not be in favor of a scoring system on an apartment unit basis, primarily because it's almost discriminatory and you're not doing it on any other property class. My response is also that we're also going into each individual apartment on a yearly basis and providing a certificate that proves that it's been inspected. That is your certification. The truth is, starting whenever the ordinance will be adopted, every unit will have been touched and will have had to get their inspection in order to get their business license to continue to operate. So you're already building in the accountability. There's no reason to call them an individual unit because they're all going to be inspected to the same criteria. And each of them will have to be addressed before they can move through the processing of their business license. So there wouldn't necessarily need, every apartment will have to meet the same criteria. Every unit will have to meet the same criteria in order to pass and come into compliance. So whether or not you picked out an individual unit doesn't really change what you're going to have to do anyway.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't every building in Avalon get an occupancy certificate? You remember, Tracy? Because that's basically what she's talking about. Occupancy certificates to make sure it's livable. Go ahead, Dean.
I just wanted to comment to JD that the people that are doing the maintenance now in these buildings are probably not certified inspectors. So once, if they do hire somebody who is certified, you'll see a change in their maintenance practices, I believe.
Yeah, can I just add, in terms of staff, I mean, this was our recommendation. I mean, if it's the will of the council to make that requirement a third-party inspector a requirement, I mean, we certainly don't have any disagreement with that. If the council approves this ordinance as written, then we would certainly be open to adjusting that requirement if we found that this allowing other than third-party inspectors was not achieving the goal, then we certainly would adjust. Because the bottom line is we want to achieve the goal. If this achieves the goal, fine. If it doesn't, then we'll adjust.
I did have a question that she brought up, was that the failure to provide truthful information. It just says failure to provide your certificate. It doesn't talk about whether the information is truthful or not. What do we have here that provides for remediation or how we take care of that?
I can answer that.
You're right.
What you have is probable cause. The reason you have to have an ordinance like this in order to inspect an interior of an apartment is because the state law prohibits county jurisdictions or city jurisdictions from going in there. State law prohibits it. It's for residents' protection and rights and all sorts of different reasons why it was adopted, and it was there long before I started working for Apartment Association. But that's why you have to have an inspector come in and do the inspections that's either hired by us or hired by a third party to come in and do those, so the county can't do them. However, under your already code of ordinances, you have the right, under code enforcement, the right of probable cause. If you are right now having complaints about an apartment unit, specifically it's a life safety issue or health and unsanitary issues, you already have the right as the city council to go through your code enforcement department to go and inspect that and to cause them to remediate or fix whatever the problem is. Your codes already give you that power. So you still would have all those things in effect. All this does is it protects. It gives you a proactive way of handling it as opposed